In my past life, my husband favored his concubine over me, leading to my tragic death in prison. Reborn. I publicly called off my wedding on the day of the ceremony and instead married a blacksmith with 8-pack abs. Until one day, the blacksmith brought my former husband before me, bound, and asked, "My lady, how shall I deal with him?" Only then did I realize the blacksmith was far more than just a 6-pack. I was reborn on the very day of my wedding to Leon Yungue. It was this day in my past life that my entire existence crumbled, dragging my loving parents down with me, all because I was too soft-hearted and believed Leon Yungue's lies. Thinking of this, I lifted my red veil and looked down at the woman kneeling at my feet, tears streaming down her face like rain. She was breathtakingly beautiful, her hands gently cradling her swollen belly, an image of heart-rending vulnerability. "Sister, you are a kind-hearted soul. Please take Luiying in." Her voice was soft and delicate, as if brimming with inexpressible grievances. "Since Luiying carries the Liang family's child, please grant me shelter from the world." This woman, who kept pleading for me to take her in, claiming she wouldn't compete with me and would content herself with being a concubine to serve me, she was a courtesan Liang Yungue kept on the outside. These scenes mirrored my past life. Listening to the pitying murmurs around us, I laughed bitterly in anger. Crouching beside her, I said, "Since you bear the Liang family's child, why seek refuge here at the Bai residence? Go to the Liang household instead." Caught off guard by my question, she blinked, her lashes heavy with tears. When she remained silent, I began to rise. Without warning, she seized my hand and pressed it against her chest. With a long sigh, Liang Yungue dismounted from his horse. "Sister, the Liang family won't accept Luiying. That's why Luiying came to beg you." She collapsed to the ground as she spoke. "If you won't accept me either, just send me away. Why treat me like this?" Before she could finish, tears fell. This was her usual trick. In my past life, I, the legitimate wife, was suffocated by her schemes. Liang Yungue fell for this act every time. He rushed to Luiying's side, helping her up. "Ninger, what are you doing?" I stared at him coldly, the suffering of my past life still vivid. "What am I doing? I want to tear him to pieces." She said she'd be my slave and servant, so what? I rose slowly, wiping the hand Luiying had just touched with my red veil. "Can't I even push her? Aren't oxen and horses meant to be ridden?" Hearing this, Luiying, trembling with tears, paled slightly, yet her eyes gleamed with triumph. What was she triumphant about? If she was so eager to leap into the Liang family's pit of fire, let her jump. I flung the red veil at her, but my fate is too frail to bear having Green Blossom, the top courtesan of Tsuiyan Pavilion, serve me like a beast of burden. The Liang family's blessings run deep, truly not a place for someone as shallowly blessed as myself. At that moment, the matchmaker hurriedly bent to pick up the red veil, ready to place it over my head. "Miss, what nonsense are you spouting on this joyous day?" I glanced sideways at her. Then I looked at the red veil in her hands. This was the one I'd painstakingly embroidered myself through countless sleepless nights. It certainly shouldn't go to that pair of scoundrels. Yes, it is a day of great joy. I took the red veil from her hands, glanced around, and fixed my gaze on the blacksmith working not far away. Everyone was watching the spectacle. Only he remained focused on his forging. His arms, defined by strong lines, were flushed red from the forge's heat. A red sash tied his coarse cotton jacket and trousers together. He looked incredibly auspicious. Without a second thought, I walked step by step toward him, the red veil in hand, and asked, "Today is a day of great joy. Will you take a bride?" On the day of my grand wedding to Liang Yungue, I was to marry a blacksmith. This would become the greatest laughingstock of the Liang family in the capital. Ignoring Luiying beside him, Liang Yingui strode over to me. His face flushed crimson with fury. What are you doing? I didn't look at him. Instead, I turned to Zhao San, who had been watching me silently for a long time, and asked, "Will you marry me?" Zhao San was also somewhat well known in the capital, not only for his exceptional blacksmithing skills, but also for his handsome features and well-built physique. Even noble ladies visiting my residence couldn't resist glancing twice at the blacksmith's workshop, let alone ordinary young ladies. "Bai Ningner, do you know what you're saying?" Liang Yingui's voice carried unchecked fury. "How dare you insult me by choosing a blacksmith?" Zhao San furrowed his thick brows slightly, shot an impatient glance at Liang Yingui beside me, then raised his hand to tap the dagger on the workbench once more. The crisp sound silenced the surrounding area. He then picked up the dagger and asked me, "Do you like it?" I froze for a moment. The small dagger was exquisitely crafted and charming, yet it felt strangely familiar. "I like it. Would using this as a betrothal gift be beneath you?" I hadn't expected him to agree so quickly, much less say something like that. Liang Yingui's eldest uncle held the position of Minister of War in the imperial court. The Liang family was vast and deeply entrenched, with connections so intricate that even the current crown prince would show them some deference. Few in the capital dared to provoke them, let alone a lowly blacksmith. This only solidified my suspicions. On that stormy night in my past life, the figure atop the Liang residence roof must have been him. Just as I shook my head to say it wouldn't be beneath me, I saw Zhao San toss the dagger into a nearby cauldron filled with oil. The sizzling sound snapped me back to reality. Liang Yingui reached out to grab me, but Zhao San's long tongs deflected his hand. Before Liang Yingui could utter another word, someone came sprinting toward us. The man shouted, "Oh no! Oh no!" all the way. Young master." As soon as he reached Liang Yingui, he knelt with a thud at his feet. "You must return to the manor immediately. The master. He's dying." The previously noisy crowd fell suddenly silent. Liang Yingui froze for a moment, then kicked the man far away. "You dog. What nonsense are you spouting?" Only I knew he wasn't spouting nonsense. Liang Sheng, the Minister of War, had died on the very day of my wedding. Lu Ying used this as an excuse to whisper in Liang Yingui's ear night after night, saying I was unlucky. It's true, master. The household is in utter chaos now. Liang Sheng was the pillar of the Liang family. With his death, how could the household not descend into chaos? Liang Yingui stared at the servant on the ground in disbelief, then hurriedly strode to his horse, swung himself up, and galloped back. Everyone was utterly surprised by this news, except Zhao San. He seemed utterly indifferent to it, a bit too unconcerned. Only then did I notice my parents hurrying towards me. Just as I turned to meet them, Zhao San seized my hand. His palm burned hot through the wedding robes. I could feel the heat radiating from his palm to my wrist. I glanced back at him. He appeared utterly calm, raising an eyebrow slightly as he asked, "Not marrying?" As if he feared I might regret it, or as if it were merely a casual question. I froze, my gaze drifting to the dagger he'd tossed into the pot moments before. Cooled. The blade appeared even more exquisitely crafted. "I will marry." Liang Yingui and I were betrothed since birth. My mother and Liang Yingui's mother were once close friends, sworn sisters who pledged this marriage while awaiting their own weddings. Madame Liang always treated me like her own daughter. In my previous life, it was for Madame Liang's sake that I swallowed my pride on our wedding day, accepted the green silk, and married Liang Yingui. But later, I came to understand. What handkerchief friendship, what beloved daughter. Neither could outweigh a single strand of Liang Yingui's hair. "Mother, I'm the one who ruined you." Mother sat at my bedside, her eyes reddening again and again. I took her hand and shook my head. "This is all the Liang family's fault. It has nothing to do with you. Mother. Had I not been reborn? Who could have known the Liang household was such a place that devours people whole? Then you truly intend to marry that blacksmith? Mother's gaze was filled with worry. If you're afraid. Before she could finish, I patted her hand to cut her off. I think he's a good man. Haven't you always said you just want me to live peacefully? Marrying him, with my parents' protection, should mean a life of ease. These were lies. I chose Zhao San solely because I knew he was far more than just a blacksmith. If my guess is right, Liang Shang's death must be connected to him. And in this life, I don't just want to live peacefully. I want to make sure Liang Yingui has no place to be buried. To destroy the Liang family and leave them ruined. Because after the incident with Lu Ying, father and mother were afraid I'd be traumatized again. When I agreed to Zhao San's request to come to the Bai residence another day to propose, they didn't stop me. My mother, who had been somewhat worried, merely sighed and said nothing more upon hearing my words. That day, when I declared my intention to marry Zhao San, he said the day of a death was inauspicious and would choose a better date to formally propose. But I waited at home for many days without seeing him come. Instead, news poured in about the Liang household descending into chaos after Liang Shang's death. Poor Yun Chang, already frail. She was being tossed about by these events. Hearing the news from the Liang family, Mother couldn't help but think of her handkerchief exchange friend. Before I could utter words of comfort, Xiao Man rushed in from outside. Mr. Zhao. Zhao has arrived. Though marrying Zhao San was merely the best compromise after the emergency, hearing he'd arrived brought me an inexplicable flutter of joy. When I rushed out, lifting my skirt, I gasped at the courtyard filled with betrothal gifts. I remembered Liang Yingui's gifts had already been generous enough to elevate my status. Yet here were Zhao San's, a mere blacksmith's son, and his offerings surpassed even Liang's. What astonished me even more was Zhao San himself. Today he wore a sky-blue robe, a stark departure from his usual attire. Sunlight fell precisely upon him, illuminating his jade-like features as if he'd stepped from a painting. He bore none of the roughness expected of an ironworker, instead radiating an air of nobility. To the uninitiated, he might well have been the son of some noble family. He approached me and opened the small box in his hand. Inside lay the dagger. Unlike when I first saw it, now it was inlaid with a glass bead. I pondered for a long time. Only this way would I not be doing you an injustice. We set the date for our wedding on the 6th day of the 6th month. I heard he had even purchased a large mansion on South Street, not far from the Bai residence, specifically to marry me. A blacksmith, where did he get the money? I embroidered my new bridal veil, glancing at Xiao Man who brought the news. She seemed quite pleased with this new son-in-law, her eyes crinkling at my question. Miss, you haven't heard? They say Master Zhao forged an exquisite sword that fetched a hefty price. The whole town's talking about it. That was news to me. Though I do know Zhao San's skill with the hammer, he surely earned it. I nodded dismissively, my eyes fixed on the half-embroidered mandarin ducks on my veil. How is the Liang household faring now? Amidst the flurry of preparations for Zhao San's wedding, I'd heard nothing of the Liangs lately. It's been quite the commotion. Magistrate Liang's body was only laid to rest yesterday. I froze. Wasn't the burial supposed to have happened earlier? It was supposed to, but His Royal Highness the Crown Prince insisted that Lord Liang's death was suspicious and demanded a thorough investigation. Xiao Man suddenly leaned closer and gave me a knowing wink. Guess what? The Liang family flat out refused. They claimed Lord Liang had a pre-existing condition that flared up and caused his death. They also argued that the deceased should be honored and that his body shouldn't be left lying around. What underlying ailment? Liang Shang was poisoned. Poisoned by Zhao San. It dragged on for days. In the end, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince gave in to the pressure and agreed to the burial without finding anything. I heard the Liang family really crossed His Royal Highness this time. Xiao Man spoke animatedly. I say. They got what they deserved. Daring to bully the young mistress, not a single decent soul in that Liang family. Then she launched into more slander about Liang Yingui and Lu Ying. But I stopped listening. It wasn't like this in my past life. I recall Liang Sheng was buried just days after I married into the family. The crown prince never questioned the cause of his death. Just as I was pondering why the crown prince had become entangled in this, Liang Yingui arrived. He brought me a box of pastries from Rui Pavilion. Once, I adored Rui Pavilion's pastries. But now, the sight of them made me feel sick. Ninger, they say you're to marry that blacksmith. Surely you're just saying that to spite me, right? I looked up at him. I'm not saying that to spite you. His previously gentle expression instantly darkened, then quickly softened into a forced smile. Ninger, I know you're angry with me, but with my uncle's sudden passing, I simply didn't have time to explain. That night, I drank a bit too much catching up with friends and mistakenly entered Lu Ying's room. If you can't bear her, just send her away. Why must you treat yourself so badly? I dodged his hand reaching to pull me up, laughed, and countered, how is that ruining myself? You could have been the new bride of the Liang family. Yet now you're marrying a lowly blacksmith. That is ruining yourself. As he spoke these words, his face radiated an air of superiority, as if becoming the new bride of the Liang family were the most glorious thing in the world. I cannot tolerate her. I smiled, lifting my head to meet his gaze coldly. But I cannot tolerate you even more. In my eyes, Master Zhao is of the highest caliber. To be his wife would be immeasurably better than being yours. No matter how prestigious your Liang family may be. I, Bai Ninger, have no interest in it. Liang Yingui never expected such words from me, who had always been gentle. He froze in place. I stood up and turned to leave. Days ago, Father returned every single piece of betrothal gift your family sent. He made it perfectly clear that our two families would have no further ties. I asked that young Master Liang refrain from seeking me out again. Only after stepping out of the front hall did I hear Liang Yingui grit his teeth behind me. Bai Ninger, you will regret this. I turned to look at him, a faint smile playing on my lips. Then I shall wait. On the 6th day of the 6th lunar month, Zhao San rode a tall horse to marry me. Amidst the clanging of gongs and drums, he helped me into the wedding sedan chair once more. This time, there were no complications. I was smoothly escorted into the Zhao residence. Zhao San had no parents and few relatives or friends. In the vast Zhao mansion, there were only the two of us and a handful of servants. After performing the proper rites to heaven and earth, we entered the bridal chamber together. Zhao San dismissed the servants from the room before picking up the ceremonial scales from the table and approaching me. He gently lifted the veil from my head, letting it fall to the floor. I raised my eyes slightly and saw Zhao San, dressed in his wedding attire. Do you drink? His voice wasn't as cold and harsh as I remembered. I stared at him, mesmerized, and didn't catch his question. I shook my head instinctively. Only later did it occur to me he must have been asking about the ceremonial wine we were supposed to drink together. I nodded again. Perhaps my dazed expression amused him, for Zhao San smiled. He was handsome when he smiled. So handsome that I often forgot he was a blacksmith. Oh, he wasn't just a blacksmith. And I married him not just because he was handsome. Just as we lay down on the bed together, I rolled over and pinned him beneath me. He seemed caught off guard by my move, his whole body stiffening. His ears flushed crimson, as if they might bleed. But I swiftly drew the dagger I'd hidden in my sleeve and pressed it against his throat. Did you kill Liang Sheng? I'd practiced this move for 2 months. Even if Zhao San was a real assassin, he wouldn't have been able to dodge me. Zhao San's previously hazy eyes suddenly sharpened. He stared at me, silent for a long time. I pinned him down tightly, not letting him move an inch. You poisoned him. Didn't you? His eyes darkened slightly as he asked in a barely audible voice, do you want to avenge him? So it was him after all. That night in the previous life. The person I saw at the Liang residence was indeed him. Why did you kill him? I asked, knowing full well the answer. He lowered his eyes slightly, replying with perfect compliance, I hated him. He destroyed my family. I froze. Then I pressed the dagger closer. You're lying. If it was truly only hatred for Liang Shang destroying his family, why did he sneak back into the Liang residence after Liang Shang's death? You know something, don't you? I asked him. He lifted his eyes to meet mine, his usually calm gaze hiding a barely perceptible flicker of surprise. I grew up alongside Liang Yingui and often visited the Liang residence. Naturally. I know more than you do. I was lying. Had I not been reborn? How could I possibly know the secrets hidden within the Liang residence? I glanced sideways at the tightly shut door, then leaned closer to Zhao San. Just as my face was about to touch his, I stopped and whispered to him, what we must do is the same. To bring the Liang family to utter ruin. Therefore, you must help me. Otherwise, I will expose the person behind you. Whether Zhao San truly feared my exposure or not, he actually agreed to teach me martial arts. But it had to be done in secret, even Xiao Man couldn't know. So every morning when she dressed me, seeing the bruises on my body would make her heart ache until tears threatened her eyes. One day, while dressing me, she accidentally brushed my leg. After I sucked in a sharp breath, she couldn't help but say, Master is being too cruel to madam. I opened my mouth to defend Zhao San but found no words. Just then, Zhao San stood at the doorway. Hearing Xiaoman's words, he pressed his fist to his lips and cleared his throat softly. I looked up and saw his ears red as if they might bleed. My own face flushed instantly. I quickly turned my head and shot Xiaoman a scolding glance. What nonsense are you talking? There's a lantern festival in town tonight. Will the mistress be attending? Zhao San only stepped inside after I finished speaking with Xiaoman. He hadn't gone to the blacksmith's yet at this hour. He was actually asking me about this. I paused, then asked him, do you want to go? Last night he clearly promised to teach me how to climb walls tonight. I have work to finish today. He walked over to me and placed a small, exquisite hairpin on my dressing table. I heard he and Lu has specially staged a new play. If you find it boring, you can go listen. Meaning he wasn't going. And he didn't have time to teach me how to climb walls either. I detest people who don't keep their word more than anything in this world. Because of this, my mood remained sour all day. Even the hairpin he sent looked utterly detestable to me. But I still went to the Crane Cloud Pavilion, not for the new play, but for the low wall in its back courtyard. It was perfect for practicing scaling walls. I jumped at the base for nearly an incense stick's worth of time without success. Finally, out of sheer frustration, I just climbed up. No sooner had I steadied myself atop the wall than I heard a soft chuckle. Is this how I taught you? Zhao San appeared out of nowhere, silently materializing beside me. His sudden presence startled me, causing my feet to slip. I tumbled backward. Fortunately, the wall wasn't high. The thought barely crossed my mind before a pair of arms wrapped around my waist. It was the height of summer, and I wore only the lightest of garments. Zhao San must have come straight from the blacksmith's forge. His palms were scorching hot, burning through the thin fabric to the soft flesh of my waist. It was both itchy and hot. Then we settled together, steady, against the corner of the wall. Moonlight spilled down from above, casting a glow on Zhao San's tautly defined arms. I blinked. In the pitch-black corner, a bashful young woman and a sturdy man clad in a qipao. Wasn't this exactly like those playbooks I'd read in my past life, stories of mistresses and servants indulging in illicit affairs? Just as my mind began to wander, Zhao San released his grip on my waist. He took a hairpin from somewhere and pinned it into my bun, asking, Didn't you like the new play? I instinctively touched the pin in my hair. It was the very one I'd slammed onto the table corner in anger. You know I wasn't listening at all. Right now. I just want to master my lightness skills quickly so I can steal all the evidence of the Liang family's crimes. The sooner, the better. Why are you here? Didn't you say you had work to finish? To watch you climb walls. I looked up and glared at him. Instead, he reached out to cover my eyes and laughed. Breathe from your lower abdomen. His soft, smiling voice drifted to me. As you exhale, channel all your strength into your toes. By the time Xiao Man came looking for me, I had successfully scaled the wall several times. Madam. Her anxious expression faltered upon seeing Zhao San. How did you come here? I've been searching everywhere for you. Zhao San supported me, already somewhat exhausted, and continued. I brought Madam here. These few branches are in full bloom. I wanted her to see them. As he spoke, he tufted jasmine blossom, plucked at some unknown moment, into my hair. My breath, which I'd been carefully holding, caught in my throat. I instinctively looked up at him. He smiled, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. Madam just mentioned how well this new play is performed. Your husband will accompany you to see it again. At that moment, I felt a flicker of disorientation. If I hadn't been reborn, if in my previous life, when Lu Yinglai came to cause trouble, I'd made that absurd decision to marry an ironworker. If I truly had only wanted to be Zhao San's wife, I would have lived a life of happiness. But I wasn't. I suppressed all emotion and replied to Zhao San in a compliant tone, all right. Somehow, the rumor spread that Zhao San was particularly rough with me in bed. It even reached my mother's ears. That day, she summoned me back to the manor. Locked in a room with me, she burst into tears before uttering a single word. It's all my fault. My child. Before I could process her words, she added, I always said that burly, uncouth man wasn't the type to cherish anyone. Even someone as slow-witted as me grasped the meaning behind her words. I glanced back at Xiao Man. After I finally persuaded Mother to let me explain Zhao San's innocence, Xiao Man pouted. Looking ready to accept any punishment, this servant just cares for Miss. I turned to look at her, utterly speechless. Just as I was leading her back to the Zhao residence, someone suddenly blocked our path. I recognized him instantly as one of Liang Yinggui's attendants. Miss Bai, the young master requests your presence upstairs for a private conversation. Following his gaze, I glanced back at the side room on the upper floor across the courtyard. Standing at the window was indeed Liang Yinggui. I have nothing to discuss with your young master. Pulling Xiao Man along, I brushed past the attendant. After walking a few steps, I turned back to look at Liang Yinggui, who remained at the window. Someday, I will have a proper talk with him. What I never could have imagined was seeing this attendant again the very next day. He stood outside the door and told me Miss Xiaoman accidentally bumped into our young master, staining his robes. The young master has invited Miss Xiaoman to accompany him into the tea house. I had thought Xiaoman was merely going to Rui Pavilion to buy a couple of pastries. Why was she taking so long? What does he want? I frowned at the attendant. The young master invites the young lady to the tea house for a chat. Chat my ass. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. Yet I followed the attendant unhurriedly into the carriage. I had no idea how long we rode before arriving at a tea house. Please, young lady. The attendant stopped outside a private room. I looked at him. I am already married. From now on, address me as Mrs. Zhao. Without waiting for his reply, I pushed open the door myself. Xiao Man was nowhere to be seen inside. Only Liang Yinggui sat by the window, dressed immaculately in a long black robe. Seeing me enter, he smiled and said, "You're here? Where is Xiao Man? What are you afraid of? I'm merely inviting her for tea. I won't kill her." Liang Yingui set down his cup and rose to close the window beside him. Then the door behind me slammed shut. I frowned. What are you doing? I hear you're not doing well these days. He stepped closer to me. Young Master Liang, you worry too much. I'm doing just fine. As soon as I finished speaking, Liang Yingui pinned me against the closed door. He reached out to pinch my chin, chuckling. I never knew you were so stubborn before. There's a lot you don't know. I coldly slapped his hand away. I heard your father has temporarily taken your uncle's position, and you're soon to marry the eldest daughter of General Wu's household. I haven't had the chance to congratulate you yet. Liang Yingui, who had been smiling moments before, saw his expression collapse instantly at my words. General Wu's eldest daughter is not only plain but also arrogant. Now 18 and still unmarried. It's common knowledge throughout the capital. Likely Liang Jie's position as Minister of Revenue is unstable, forcing Liang Yingui into this marriage. So that's what it was. Ning was jealous. Liang Yingui's expression eased, his smile brimming with confidence as he looked at me. Marrying Miss Wu was father's decision. Haven't you known my feelings for you all these years? Even though you married a lowly blacksmith, I never disdained you. With that, he leaned in to press against me. I hear that blacksmith never cherished you. I'm different. Just as he was about to pin me down, I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. Mr. Liang, please control yourself. Now is not the time to kill him. He hadn't expected my slap and touched his stinging cheek in shock. By Ningner! He glared at me, teeth clenched. You swore you'd marry no one but me. I merely slept with a courtesan, and you married a blacksmith to humiliate me. Now I've forgiven you and offered reconciliation, and you dare strike me. My promise to marry him was nothing but youthful folly. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. I turned to open the door and leave, but the door wouldn't budge. Just then, Liang Yingui grabbed me from behind. His voice grew more feral. By Ning'er, there's no woman in this world I can't have. If you submit to me, neither you nor that blacksmith will ever be mistreated. I spat in disgust. You're worse than a beast. Just as his hands reached to tear off my clothes, I drew the dagger hidden in my sleeve and slashed at his throat. To my shock, he dodged it, and the blade only grazed his face. You filthy woman! How dare you scar my face? He snarled, gritting his teeth. Once I'm done with you, I'll skin you alive. I'd only trained with Zhao San for 2 months. Though my lightness skills had improved, my close combat was still rudimentary. Within moments, Liang Yingui knocked my dagger from my hand. Despite every trick I had, he bound me to the soft couch. Liang Yingui, may you rot in hell. He shed his usual gentlemanly facade, his blood-stained face contorting into a lecherous grimace. Why such hatred? Once I've made you feel good, you'll be begging to be my concubine. With that, he began stripping my clothes. Though I told myself not to beg for mercy, tears fell when he stripped me down to my undergarments. If only I'd given myself to Zhao San on our wedding night. The thought barely flashed through my mind when someone kicked open the locked door. It was Zhao San. He strode to the couch, knocked Liang Yingui aside with a palm strike, then wrapped his long robe tightly around me, my shoulder already half exposed. Just as I thought he would fight Liang Yingui, who had risen to his feet, he simply scooped me up and swiftly left the room. He didn't leave the tea house. Go buy a set of clothes, he muttered, though I couldn't tell if he was speaking to himself or someone else. I only felt a gust of wind as the private room door slammed shut behind us. Zhao San tried to lay me on the bed, but I grabbed him instead. I looked up at him and couldn't hold back my tears any longer. I buried my face in his chest. Don't leave me. Zhao San stayed with me in the tea house until late into the night before taking me back to the mansion. The moment we returned, I saw Xiaomon's eyes, red and swollen. Madam. I glanced at her, then turned to look at Zhao San beside me. He whispered softly. The tea house was crowded and full of prying eyes. I had her return first. I knew he did all this to protect my reputation. Nodding to him, I reassured Xiao Man, I'm fine. Next time I see someone I shouldn't, I'll just avoid them. From that day onward, I trained even more diligently. After this incident, I no longer practiced in secret from Xiao Man. She assumed I was shaken by what happened and never suspected a thing. Days passed one after another, and before I knew it, winter had arrived. Zhao San was quite surprised by my progress, often remarking that even he at my age couldn't match my current skill. One day, while I was practicing martial arts in the courtyard, Zhao San, who had gone to the blacksmith's shop, suddenly returned. He waited until I had put away my spear before asking, I hear the plum blossoms are in full bloom on the mountain outside the city. Would the lady like to go see them? Having lived with him for so long, I knew full well he wasn't genuinely inviting me to admire the plum blossoms. I flung my spear onto the rack. All right. The carriage rolled steadily out of the city and up the mountain. Just as Zhao San had said, the plum blossoms were in full bloom, dusted with snow, a rare and beautiful sight. Do you like it? Zhao San suddenly leaned over from his seat on the other side as I lifted the curtain to gaze at the blossoms. I turned my head and nearly kissed his face. Startled, I asked him, Did you really bring me here to see the flowers? It's windy out there. Be careful not to catch a chill. He smiled, lowered the curtain I'd lifted, and sat back down. What else? Haven't you always loved admiring flowers? His words jolted me back to reality. I did love admiring flowers, but that was all in a past life. As we spoke, the carriage came to a halt. Master, we've arrived, the coachman announced respectfully from outside. Zhao San stepped down before me, taking the umbrella from the coachman's hand and unfurling it for me. I have no work these next 2 days. I'll accompany you to admire the flowers on the mountain. Standing on the carriage, I gazed at Han's Han Temple before me and placed my hand in his palm. For the past half-year, I'd trained in martial arts daily, long since casting aside those leisurely pursuits. These 2 days of quiet contemplation, taking in the mountains blanketed in plum blossoms, weren't so bad. Thus, Zhao San and I settled into lodging at the temple. Thump, 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 on the 3rd night of our stay. Someone knocked on our door. The visitor was clad entirely in black, face concealed beneath a hood. My hand instinctively gripped the dagger hidden in my sleeve as I heard him kneel before Zhao San. We've arrived. His voice was colder than the biting wind outside. Zhao San gave a slight nod and placed the black hood he prepared over my head. He said to me, It's been a while. Try your lightness skills. Before I could process what was happening, he and the black-clad figure had already left the room. Without further thought, I followed them out. Zhao San's lightness skills were truly like a wild goose leaving no trace. Despite straining every muscle, I could only catch glimpses of his shadow. After running for an unknown duration, he finally halted atop a tree. By the time I landed beside him, my breath was already ragged. He smiled and tapped my hooded cap. Few in this world can keep pace with me. That's because you waited for me. You're the only one who ever makes me wait. His eyes crinkled with amusement as he spoke, his tone gentle as if uttering the most ordinary words. Yet for some reason, my breath, just regained, began to falter again. I hastily averted my gaze, unable to meet his eyes, instead scanning the surroundings. Why bring me here? Zhao San and I stood concealed in the tree, holding our breath. Soon enough, a procession passed below. At the head was Liang Yungue. The next moment, a swarm of figures burst from the woods, encircling the group. Judging by their attire, they appeared to be bandits. Did you know bandits would be here? I glanced sideways at Zhao San. He nodded with a smile. Half an hour later, Liang Yingui was bound and gagged. Then Zhao San whistled. The bandit leader whipped a barbed lash across Liang Yingui's back. I was taken aback. Your men? Not exactly. He glanced at me. How would you like to handle this, madam? In that instant, I suddenly realized how dangerous Zhao San truly was. Dangerous not only because of the terrifying forces behind him, but also because of the tenderness that had nearly ensnared me. All this time, he knew that since that day, I'd wanted to tear Liang Yingui limb from limb. But I hadn't acted, not wanting to alert him prematurely. So he chose tonight's opportunity, simply to let me exact my revenge with my own hands. Seeing my prolonged silence, he pulled a small crossbow from his robe. One glance told me he'd made it especially for me. Such painstaking efforts to win my favor, whether in my past life or this one. He was the only one. He placed the crossbow in my hand. Leave him breathing. No need for him to say it. I returned the crossbow to his grasp, drew the short sword at his side, and said coldly, "Put him down." He faltered. I turned my head to look at him. After all these days of training, you must have made some progress. With that, I pulled a black cloth from my hood to cover my mouth and nose. Then tiptoed down. You're lucky, kid. Our mistress said if you beat her, you can leave. The bandit leader swung his blade, cutting through the ropes binding Liang Yingui. In that instant, I saw the bloodlust in Liang Yingui's eyes. Martial arts training isn't something you rush. Yet every move I'd learned was specifically for Liang Yingui. This time was entirely different from our last encounter at the tea house. After just over a dozen exchanges, Liang Yingui could no longer withstand my strikes. Seizing the moment, I swung my sword faster. Only after carving 18 wounds into his body with my dagger did I stop. He had abandoned all dignity, kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. Please spare me, madam. I will repay you handsomely. I am the young master of the Liang family of the capital. I will surely be of use to you. The young master of the Liang family of the capital is of no use to me. I ignored him, turning to flick the dagger toward his groin. It flew back to the tree branch amid his howls. Impressive technique, madam. 18 strikes, each avoiding vital points. No sooner had I landed from the tree than I heard Zhao San's amused voice. All thanks to your teaching. Madam far surpasses me in skill. I knew his words were meant to flatter me. But gazing down at Liang Yingui, drenched in blood and unconscious, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. A pity your sword is stained. If you like them, madam, I'll forge you a few more sets another day. On the way back, Zhao San no longer walked ahead alone but kept pace with me. Only after we returned to the temple did I remove my veil and look at Zhao San. The dim light in the room cast him in a hazy, profoundly mysterious glow. Why are you so kind to me? I'd wanted to ask him this question for a long time. Why did you agree to marry me? Why didn't you kill me? Knowing all I know? Why did you save me? And why are you willing to teach me martial arts? You are my wife. A simple sentence, like a pebble tossed into the still waters of my heart. I laughed. What kind of wife? What kind of wife is someone who's never shared a bed with you? I nodded, hooking my fingers through his clothes to pull him toward the bed. Fine. I'll be your wife. With that, I began to undress him. His body stiffened. He grabbed my hands, his ears flushing crimson. Stop it. I blinked at him. You don't desire my body. My father is merely a fifth-rank censor, no connection to your blacksmith shop. I can't fathom why you treat me so well. It unsettles me. I threw caution to the wind, struggling to continue undressing him. At least today, I'll give myself to you as repayment. As we tugged at each other, I actually managed to pull his clothes open. His firm chest was instantly exposed before my eyes. Next came his sharply defined abdomen. I swallowed involuntarily. I couldn't tell if it was my imagination, but this scene felt like I was forcing a respectable man to offer himself to me. And I truly only wanted to pressure Zhao San into revealing the truth. Ninger. Finally, he seized my hand with force, pushing me away from him. After hastily pulling his clothes back on, he sighed, "This is a Buddhist sanctuary. Don't do this." I glanced at his chest. "Fine. We'll talk about it when we return." Whether it was my words that day that frightened him. The next morning he took me back to the Zhao residence. From then on, he slept in the study every night. Xiao Man was the most troubled by this. After sighing and lamenting for several days, she finally couldn't hold back one morning. I used to just hope the master would show the mistress a little kindness. But I never imagined they'd end up sleeping in separate rooms. I glanced at her reflection in the mirror. What on earth was this little maid thinking? Could it be that the master? She stopped mid-sentence, hastily covering her mouth. I didn't need to guess the unspoken words. Just as I lifted my head to scold her, a cough sounded at the doorway. Xiao Man spotted Zhao San at the entrance and wished she could vanish into a hole. I wasn't much better off. As soon as Zhao San stepped inside, Xiao Man hurriedly curtsied, "This servant will check if the lady's breakfast is ready." With that, she slipped out as swiftly as grease on a floor, leaving me alone. She truly is loyal. I offered Zhao San a forced smile. Those words weren't mine. The statement sounded hollow, after all. If I hadn't said it, no one else would know. But it was indeed Xiaoman's nonsense. Zhao San merely raised an eyebrow at my words before changing the subject. "Your father's birthday is in a couple of days. I'll accompany you back." I nodded quickly, surprised he'd come for this. In my previous life, I'd been arguing with Liang Yingui at this time and hadn't returned for his birthday, fearing it would worry my father. Little did I know it would be his last. This time, though it won't be his last birthday, I absolutely must return to celebrate with him. "Thank you." As Zhao San was about to leave, I called after him. "Won't you join us for breakfast? There are matters to attend to in the study." Lately, he had indeed been very busy. Xiao Man said he returned to his study quite late each night. But today he came back early. As soon as he arrived, he had the bedding from the study moved back to his room. Watching Zhao San shift uncomfortably in the room, unable to sit or stand still, I couldn't help but chuckle. Before I could ask, he explained, "I've been so busy lately. Afraid I'd disturb you if I came back too late." His words seemed meant for Xiaoman's ears. I nodded, choosing not to call him out on it, considering he was accompanying me home for my father's birthday. Still, we never shared a bed. On the day of my father's birthday celebration, I overheard someone say that Liang Yingui had become a cripple. Through the barrier, I heard people outside mutter disapprovingly. They say he was tortured by bandits. Though he managed to survive, he's completely crippled now. No wonder the crackdown on bandits has been so intense lately. I'd thought they were just growing more rampant. But it turns out there's more to it. Before I could hear the rest, a pair of hands covered my ears. I looked up to see Zhao San, who'd just gone to present gifts to my father. He led me a long way before releasing my ears. "No need to listen to this filth. It'll dirty your ears." Winter dragged on, and finally, spring arrived with blossoms bursting forth. When Xiao Man came to tell me Lu Ying had given birth to a son, I was catching falling peach blossoms with my sword. A son? I recall it was a daughter. Indeed. The Liang household is overjoyed, practically worshipping Lu Ying like an ancestor. Xiao Man spoke with palpable resentment. "It's so unfair, he should be cursed to have no descendants." I sheathed my sword and glanced at her. "Keep such thoughts to yourself." Lu Ying's son arrived under suspicious circumstances, but I couldn't care less. At least it could ensure Liang Yingui had no descendants. Just then, Zhao San returned. He walked over, plucked the peach blossom from my hair, and only then dismissed Xiaoman. The moment she left, he suddenly announced, "The letter has arrived." I froze, then instantly realized what he meant. The letter? I couldn't believe it. In my previous life, I only learned of that letter 2 months later. I never imagined it would arrive so soon. Zhao San nodded, looking at me with some hesitation. I knew exactly what troubled him. Does my father know about that letter? I asked him directly. In my previous life, my father received intelligence that the Liang family had colluded with the enemy and betrayed the nation, with evidence of correspondence. Yet no proof was ever found. The Minister of War enjoyed the Emperor's profound favor, and the entire Liang family was under imperial protection. Reporting without evidence would surely invite disaster. Furthermore, because I had married Liang Yingui, he feared implicating me and thus delayed reporting the matter to the Emperor. He began gathering evidence while persuading Liang Yingui to divorce me. Yet in the end, he fell into the Liang family's trap, framed for treason and collaboration. I clasped Zhao San's hand and said calmly, "Tonight, we go to the Liang residence. I know where that letter is. Only I know, Liang Yingui told me when I died. This was my first time visiting the Liang residence in this lifetime. Yet I could navigate those paths with my eyes closed." Zhao San and I descended upon the Liang family shrine. Zhao San whispered, "Why didn't you trust me?" "I did trust you. I could have handled this alone. Bringing you was too dangerous." I looked at him then. He would never know the depth of my hatred for Liang Yingui. Every day, I began martial arts training at dawn and practiced until nightfall. Wasn't it all to destroy the Liang family with my own hands? Without further explanation, I flipped over and entered the ancestral hall. There was a secret chamber within the hall. Following the memory's description, I felt my way to the second tablet in the third row. With a gentle twist, a door indeed opened behind it. I'd never entered the secret chamber before, but fortunately, there was only one path inside. After a few steps, I reached a small room. The secret letter was hidden inside a Buddha shrine placed on the table. But the moment my hand touched the shrine, I heard a sound from outside. I quickly pulled Zhao San under the table holding the altar. "Father, why didn't you destroy this letter?" 2 footsteps approached, followed by Liang Yingui's voice. Perhaps because he'd been stripped of his title, his tone sounded darker than before, unpleasantly harsh. "If they renege later, this is evidence. How could we destroy it? But if someone discovers it, wouldn't that be even more dangerous?" Only the head of the Liang family knew about the secret chamber in the ancestral hall. Storing it here would ensure it remained undiscovered. Then came the sound of the altar above my head being lifted. The 2 of them plotted further schemes to have the third prince abolish the crown prince before finally leaving the secret chamber. Only after hearing complete silence outside did I dare to breathe a sigh of relief. "You are." I turned to look at Zhao San, but before I could finish, my lips brushed against his. In that instant, my mind went blank. Realizing the danger of the situation, I quickly snapped back to my senses and crawled out from under the table. "Are you the crown prince's man?" I pondered it over and over. A blacksmith who could afford to live in the capital, kill at will, and meddle in matters of treason and collusion with enemies, there was only one person who could be the crown prince. "You kept insisting you'd expose the person behind me. I thought you already knew." How could a woman confined to the inner quarters possibly know such things? It was merely a ploy to deceive him. Hearing his words, I could only blink, signaling my newfound understanding. He chuckled, reaching into the shrine before me to retrieve the superstitious object. "Seems we arrived just in time. This thing is too dangerous. Keep it on you." This time, I didn't argue with him. Mastering martial arts isn't something that happens overnight. No matter how hard I trained, there was no way I could catch up to Zhao San in less than a year. I came with him only because I felt my lightness skills were decent enough not to slow him down. Keeping this letter on him was indeed much safer than keeping it on me. After leaving the Liang residence, we didn't return to the Zhao estate. Instead, we raced straight to the Liang family's country estate outside the city. I'd only visited this estate once in my previous life. Back then, I was surprised to see so many servants guarding a place that clearly wasn't inhabited. Now, I realized there was only one possible reason. The Liang family must have hidden the money from their dealings with the enemy nation here. You're surprisingly familiar with this estate too? Zhao San's words made me pause. I'd been so focused on finding incriminating evidence that I'd forgotten I shouldn't recognize this estate in this lifetime. When I was young, Lady Liang took me here twice because she liked me. I blurted out a lie. Fortunately, Zhao San didn't dwell on it and continued searching the estate with me. After searching nearly all night, we finally found a room with a hidden chamber. The room was cluttered with jars and vases. I gently twisted the second vase in the third row. The hidden chamber door swung open, facing Zhao San's astonished expression. I smiled. The layout here resembles the ancestral hall. Madam is perceptive. Our hunch proved correct. This secret chamber indeed concealed vast treasures, gold, silver, jewels, and rare tribute items. The Liang family was far wealthier than we'd imagined. In my past life, when they came to propose marriage, they offered only the most ordinary betrothal gifts. It seems they never truly valued me. But Zhao San. I turned my head to look at him. He practically emptied his family's fortune to marry me. Zhao San, what's your real name? I suddenly asked him. He probably didn't expect such a question and turned to look at me. Was it just my imagination? Amidst all this gold and jewels, I thought I saw a trace of nobility in him. Yet in daily life, he was just a rough blacksmith. You're the third son in your family, right? I voiced my guess. He paused, then suddenly laughed. Just then, the sound of patrols reached us from outside. He placed a finger to his lips and whispered, "Shoo. If you want to know, I'll tell you later." Who knew when that later would come? But all this was indeed insignificant compared to the Liang family's crimes. Having found the Liang family's stash of stolen goods, Zhao San and I finally returned to the Zhao residence with peace of mind. The next day, we carried on as usual, pretending nothing had happened. Zhao San went to the blacksmith's shop, and I returned to the Bai residence. Your father has been deeply troubled lately. I asked him about it, but he wouldn't say. Upon my return, Mother told me father had been extremely busy lately. She didn't know, but I did. Just as in my previous life, father had now uncovered evidence of the Liang family's treasonous collaboration with the enemy. This time, since I hadn't married into the Liang family, he felt more at ease gathering proof. However, being merely a censor promoted from the provinces, he held little influence in the capital. Finding concrete evidence against the Liang family proved nearly impossible. This was the source of his worry. During dinner, I placed his favorite dish, Four Delights meatballs, into his mouth and said, "Father, you've grown thin lately. You must eat well." Only by eating well and keeping his strength up could he witness the day Liang Yingui met his end. His previously somber expression instantly lifted at the sight of the meatballs in his bowl. His gaze filled with tender affection. Zhao San comes from a good family. Our Ninger is blessed, even heaven protects her. Mother smiled. Ninger tells you to eat well, and suddenly you bring this up? I know. He was merely filled with countless thoughts, reflecting how fortunate I was not to have married into the Liang family. The old emperor passed away. I was sitting in the courtyard cooling off when I heard the news. After Zhao San and I returned from the Liang residence that day, he assured me to rest easy, saying he'd handle everything from then on. Handling it meant entrusting it to the crown prince. I never imagined so much time would pass without a word, only to be met with this news. The emperor has passed away. You. I dared not say more, only staring at Zhao San. He understood my unspoken words at once, smiling as he gently lifted my chin with his hand, silencing me. The crown prince is dutiful and benevolent. Don't let your imagination run wild. What he said was true, whether in my past life or this one. The crown prince's reputation had always been impeccable. The world proclaimed he would be a wise ruler. Had I not trusted the crown prince, I wouldn't have entrusted Zhao San with the secret letter even after learning he was the crown prince. I leaned in to press further, but the emperor. In my previous life, the old emperor remained alive and well until the day I died in the dungeon. Now, just after handing over the Liang family's incriminating evidence to the crown prince, the old emperor has died. It's impossible not to speculate. Imperial affairs are not for us to speculate about. You only need to trust me and trust the crown prince. I blinked. Why do you trust the crown prince so deeply? Having known Zhao San for so long, I know he excels in both scholarship and martial arts. Even disguised as a blacksmith, no one ever suspected him. Such an exceptional man, why would he devote himself so completely to the crown prince? He saved my life. His simple words. That was enough. I nodded. All right. I'll trust you too. He seemed amused by my response. Then why do you trust me? I pondered for a moment before answering. Because when I became the laughingstock of the entire city, you were willing to marry me. In your line of work, finding a spouse must be difficult. It used to be impossible. He lowered his gaze, leaving the rest of his words unspoken. Then the crown prince ascended the throne smoothly and began personally handling the Liang family's affairs. Zhao San grew increasingly busy. His blacksmith shop never reopened. Every day he assisted the crown prince with matters concerning the Liang family. Within days, news reached me that the Liang family had been accused of treason and collusion with the enemy. All members of the Liang family were imprisoned, except for Liang Yingui, who fled overnight with his young son. Zhao San searched for 3 days and nights without finding any trace of him. I insisted on joining him in the search. I'm starting to regret letting you learn martial arts, he said suddenly as we stood together in the hidden chamber of the Liang family estate. I knew he thought I was getting a bit too cocky. I smiled at him, too late for regrets now. Look! As he spoke, I spotted an almost imperceptible crack in the wall. I tapped it lightly. It was hollow. Who would have thought this secret chamber hid another? Zhao San and I searched for ages before finding an inconspicuous pebble tucked in the corner. A gentle twist of the stone slid open a hidden door in the wall. Beyond lay a narrow passageway. Zhao San and I traversed the passage into a wooded area. Regretting it now? If not for me. Before I could finish my smug remark, an arrow whistled toward me. Zhao San's quick reflexes pulled me out of the way, but the arrow still grazed his arm. I glanced at his wound before scanning the surroundings. Nothing but trees. No one. I knew it was you. Liang Yingui's chilling voice echoed from the darkness. Today, I'll make you all die here and avenge my family. Who dies here is still up in the air. Zhao San replied coldly. Then we'll see. No sooner had the words left his mouth than a hail of arrows erupted from the woods. Only when I was forced to rely on Zhao San's protection despite my desperate struggle did I realize how utterly ignorant of my own limitations I had been. Zhao San shielded me as we retreated step by step, finally hurling me back into the cave. Go get help, he ordered before resuming his defense against the relentless barrage of arrows. I nodded frantically and sprinted back without hesitation. Fortunately, all the men Zhao San had brought were stationed outside the manor. I quickly led them back through the secret passage, only to find Zhao San nowhere in sight. The ground was littered with broken arrows and bloodstains. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. I had never regretted anything so deeply. Regretted my overconfidence in entering the secret passage with Zhao San. Regretted marrying Zhao San. Using him to destroy the Liang family. Madam! Over here! Someone called out just as I was consumed by regret. It was the trail of blood in the roadside grass. Zhao San must have used this to guide us. That meant he was probably unharmed. Or at least still conscious. I hurriedly led my men deeper into the woods. Following the blood trail. After walking for an unknown length of time, the mist grew thicker and thicker. Finally, we emerged from the fog to find ourselves before a waterfall. I spotted the cave hidden behind the waterfall at once. Not long after entering the cave with my men, I heard the wail of an infant. I rushed toward the sound and saw Liang Yingui covering a baby's mouth. Stop crying, or I'll kill you. He turned and saw us. It's all your fault. He glared at the infant. His face twisted with loathing. A truly terrifying sight. Just as he was about to strangle the baby, I stepped forward to snatch the child. Unexpectedly, he flung the infant away and seized me in his grasp. Ninger. His sickening breath brushed my ear. It's all your fault. Why won't you marry me? If you'd married me, your father would never have let you suffer like this. I won't live through today. You'll die with me. We'll be husband and wife in the afterlife. I gritted my teeth. You can forget it. Attack! Seize him now! I shouted at the soldiers across the way, who were hesitating. Perhaps my voice was too loud, for Zhao San, lying nearby, stirred. All eyes turned to him. He actually opened his eyes. After seeing my state, he struggled to his feet, leaning against the wall. Let her go. His voice was icy, utterly unlike how he spoke to me normally. Trade me for her. Liang Yingui burst into laughter. Don't try that deep love bullshit on me. She was always mine. Zhao San. Make them arrest him. I cried out. The blade pressed against my throat, pressed in closer. Liang Yingui asked with a sinister smile. I'll see who dares. Zhao San wouldn't dare. I would. I seized the dagger hidden in my sleeve, swiftly twisting my wrist to plunge it into Liang Yingui's chest. Though my movement was swift, Liang Yingui still managed to slash my neck with his dagger as he collapsed. Watching Zhao San rush to catch me, I let out a laugh. What a pity. I thought I might live a little longer this lifetime. I thought that once the Liang family was overthrown, Zhao San and I could finally live peacefully as devoted spouses. What a pity indeed. Zhao San, what's your real name? I asked as I collapsed into his arms. If I'm going to die, I can't leave without knowing even one name. How would I find him in the next life? Zhao San's eyes reddened. Zhaoan. What a beautiful name. I smiled. Peaceful. Peaceful. May you find peace for all eternity. He shook his head. And then, like a big man, he started to cry. Such a crybaby. But I love him anyway. I loved him so much. I loved how he smiled when calling me my lady. Loved his palm burning hot after forging iron. Loved his ears that flushed red. I raised my hand, unwilling to give up, and touched his face. Don't marry again. Your line of work. Well, it's not exactly conducive to marriage. Extra story. You've returned? Kneeling in the imperial study, I couldn't lift my head as I heard the emperor's mocking voice. The emperor snorted coldly, flinging a memorial at my feet. You once swore to follow my lead, vowed to be my blade. He circled the desk to stand before me. Now, for a woman, you vanished for years. Were I unaware of your true nature? I'd believe you'd return to Zhao to seize the throne and invade. I hastily protested. I wouldn't dare. What is it you dare not? He kicked the memorial at my feet. Look at what's written here. I lowered my eyes. I didn't need to look to know. It was likely someone had discovered my identity as the son of Zhao's former royal prince and sought to eliminate me. These past years, while waiting for Ning'er to awaken, I had never meddled in court affairs. Yet, merely occupying the position of commander of the Imperial Guard had stirred discontent among the ministers. Now that someone has uncovered my true identity, they naturally intend to make a big deal out of it. But they should also know that back then, Zhao was plunged into civil war due to Liang Sheng's meddling. My father and mother were beheaded during that conflict, and I only found a sliver of hope after fleeing all the way to Qin. After being taken in by the crown prince, my sole focus became eliminating the Liang family. Nothing else mattered. Your servant remains utterly loyal to your majesty. Cut the nonsense. The emperor crouches before me. Back then, I begged you not to marry her. But you insisted. Where was your unwavering loyalty to me then? I was speechless. The dowry came from the emperor himself. Finally, expressionless, I recounted the events of that time with solemn gravity. I was kicked out of the imperial study by the emperor himself, and the seal of the commander of the Imperial Guard landed squarely on my shoulders. Seems he was pretty furious. But I was in a splendid mood. Hurry and take me to the commandant's residence. I glanced inside. Your Majesty, you'd better hurry up with the imperial selection. Otherwise, how will you ever know the charm of a warm bed with a wife and children? I took the seal to the commandant's residence for an inspection. Seeing how meticulously Wu Ying had organized everything, I returned home satisfied. Ning'er had only awakened a month ago and was still somewhat frail. Seeing her sitting in the courtyard, I hastily removed my long robe and draped it over her. It's chilly outside. Why not go inside? She looked up at me, her eyes sparkling. I panicked a bit when I woke up and you weren't here. I went to the palace to see His Majesty. Did he blame you? No. He rewarded you with many restorative tonics. The Crown Prince truly is a good man. You're not allowed to praise other men. Zhao Wen is also a good man. It's been so long since I've known such peaceful days. Each day passes so quickly. So quickly it feels like everything is just a dream. After 3 months of recuperation, Ning'er's health finally stabilized. I no longer had to live in constant fear she might slip away again. But she was always a restless soul, and now she was stirring up trouble once more. Lying in bed, I watched her suddenly sit up. With a headache, I asked, "What is it?" "Nothing good. I bet." "Let me feel your belly." She let me touch it, then started wriggling around. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and rolled over, pinning her beneath me. Her big eyes blinked innocently, as if accusing me. Just as I was caught between a rock and a hard place, she suddenly wrapped her arms around my neck. We made love. The love we delayed for 4 years finally happened that night. Afterward, she looked at me like a satisfied kitten, licking her vermilion lips. So damn tempting. Just as I'd imagined. Her voice had grown soft and sweet. Yet those words ignited me like a flame. "You've got some nerve saying that." She narrowed her eyes and laughed like a child caught stealing, her laughter lingering long. Finally, nestled in my arms, she whispered softly, "Zhao Wen, am I dreaming?" That was a question I'd longed to ask. For so very long. The day she was veiled in red and brought into my household. I'd wanted to ask her, "Ning'er, am I dreaming?" But it couldn't be a dream. After all this time, still awake. It simply couldn't be. "Zhao Wen." My hairpin's broken. Seeing me silent for so long, Ning'er shifted in my arms and murmured sleepily, "I'll make you another one tomorrow. Even though I now command the Imperial Guard, I will always be her blacksmith." When I finished forging her hairpin, she had just emerged from the Bai residence, standing in the sunlight in her smoky green gown. She looked like a fairy descended from heaven. That day, the weather was just as fine. I tied a crimson sash around my waist to celebrate her wedding. Just as I was ready to tear the woman kneeling before me to shreds, she approached me, veil in hand, and asked, "Today is a blessed day. Will you take a bride?" In that moment, my mind went blank. I shouldn't have married at all, and certainly not her. Yet I couldn't resist grabbing her hand, afraid this was just a whim, afraid she'd regret it. By the time I came to my senses, Ninger had already walked briskly up to me. I never noticed before, but now I see your shop is in a prime location. It is. That year, I bought it from someone else at triple the price, just so I could see her often. Is this how you grew so deeply attached to me? Watching me day after day? I smiled, tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear, saying nothing. She would never know that year. On her way to the capital, she saved a man's life with a few meat buns. Nor did she need to know. Nor did I need to bring up my shameful past. Are you hungry? I have some buns here for you. That year, the young girl had bright eyes and a radiant smile, already blossoming with vitality despite her tender age. I glanced at her, took the bun, and began devouring it greedily. What's your name? Zhaoen. What a lovely name. I'm Bai Ninger. Peace and tranquility, eat my bun, and may you find peace for a lifetime. The end.